Genre Analysis Introduction. This genre analysis will be looking at the 1996 mystery horror movie Scream, written by Kevin Williamson and directed by Wes Craven, and seeing to what extent it fits its genre. Plot summary. The peaceful town of Woodsboro becomes a media circus after a masked killer starts slaughtering local teenage film aficionados, quizzing them on their movie knowledge beforehand. Apparently, a horror movie fan is taking his love of the genre way too far. As the body count begins to rise, one group of teenagers try to understand the rules of a horror movie in an attempt to survive the horror movie they find themselves in. Theme. The theme of Scream would be acceptance. The main character tries to deny the truth about her mother, getting visibly upset and even violent at one point at the suggestion that her mother was unfaithful. There is also the question of how much influence horror movies have on young people and whether they are being desensitized to violence. Conventions or cliches. In a horror movie, typically, the main character suffers the most but survives in the end and is stronger for the experience. At the start of the movie, the main character, Sydney, seems a little unhinged, and it is eventually revealed that she was traumatized after discovering her mother's body 1 year earlier. In the end, Sydney confronts her mother's murderers, survives several attempts to kill her, and eventually kills them. In horror movies, police never catch the killer. This is one cliche that Scream adheres to. The cops are useless. A common convention in mystery is to mislead the audience with a red herring. In Scream, there are a lot of red herrings, as the character Randy exclaims, "Everybody's a suspect." The writer Kevin Williamson has done an excellent job of keeping the killer's identity a secret until the end of the film. Identify the main purpose and audience of the genre. The purpose of a horror movie is to frighten the viewer. The audience wants to experience fear and relief when the movie is over. In Scream, most of the characters are teenagers, so the movie would appeal to young people mostly. Anyone who likes a good mystery would enjoy this movie too. Film techniques. In all scary movies, eerie music is used to let the audience know that something bad is about to happen, but in Scream, it's over the top. When the killer attacks, it's always to the sound of very loud, sudden, frightening music. And that's not all. Because the killer calls his victims to toy with them before attacking, a phone ringing makes the audience apprehensive. Silence can also be scary. For example, when Casey is being chased by the killer at the start of the movie, she goes outside and all that can be heard is her breathing, thus building suspense until the killer suddenly appears. Suspense is also built up by using camera angles that make it seem that the killer could be sneaking up behind the characters when they're talking to him on the phone. Stereotypes. In a good horror movie, there's usually a funny guy character. Scream has three funny guys. Deputy Dewey, David Arquette, who is a lovable fool who the audience is laughing at rather than with most of the time. Randy, Jamie Kennedy, who does funny voices and makes bad jokes, and Stuart, Matthew Lillard, who just does strange things at random to get a laugh out of his friends. And then there's the slutty girl character, Tatum, Rose McGowan, who is best friends with Sydney, Nev Campbell, who's the virgin character who almost always lives in the end. At the other end of the scale, the least likely to survive, the authority figure character, Principal Henry Winkler. There isn't much to say about this character. Mostly he's just there to be killed because there hasn't been a murder in a while and the audience would have been bored otherwise. The most stereotypical character would be the first actor we see in the movie, Casey, Drew Barrymore, who's the typical horror movie victim, a dumb blonde girl who is chased and quickly killed to set the film's tone. Scream also has some extra stereotypical characters that are not present in all horror movies, like the nosy reporter Gail Weathers, Courtney Cox, who is a love interest for Deputy Dewey. And then there's Sydney's boyfriend, Billy, Skeet Ulrich, who's the bad boy. Although Scream has these stereotypes, it's not a stereotypical movie in itself. It's a movie where the characters have seen a lot of horror movies and know all the cliches and try to avoid them. The killer in Scream is not the stereotypical masked killer. Normally the killer never talks, but in Scream he calls his victims on the phone and is very conversational. Also, in a lot of horror movies, the killer is invincible, but the Ghostface killer in Scream is just a normal human that can be fought off, and if the local police weren't so inept, he would probably have been caught after the first murder. Are the stereotypes challenged or reinforced? Scream is a very self-referential horror movie. The characters in Scream are connoisseurs of horror movies. They know the rules which are explicitly stated in the film, like you can never have sex. It's only the virgins that survive. But Scream challenges this by having the main character lose her virginity and she still survives. Another way the movie tinkers with our expectations is having the most famous actress in the movie, Drew Barrymore, whom the audience expects to last throughout the whole movie, dies in the first sequence. This tells the audience that Scream isn't like all the other scary movies, it breaks the rules while still paying homage to the classic horror movies. Is the film a successful example of the genre? A horror movie should scare the audience, and Scream is very frightening for first time viewers. It's As a mystery, it's perfect. No one figures out who the killer is. He has to reveal himself in the end. Scream was a huge success. It made Kevin Williamson's career, who went on to create Dawson's Creek, and it resurrected the horror movie franchise, which was very unpopular in the early 90s. Why did you choose this film and how it relates to you? Scream is one of my all-time favorite movies. It was the first proper horror movie I'd ever seen, and with all the references to other horror movies, it encouraged me to seek out and watch them. That's probably the best thing about Scream. It doesn't avoid obscure references, and it's not afraid that the audience won't get it. The writer knew that mystery equals intrigue and not repulsion, unlike some of his contemporaries. I think it enticed a lot of young people at the time to look for and enjoy the old horror movies from the 70s and 80s.